Through My Two Blue, the podcast from me, Trey Day, Every Day, All Day, award-winning broadcaster from Little Rock, Arkansas. Thank you so much for tuning in. With the climate we're in right now, with all the social injustice, and I really think some change is going to come of this, I want to educate you of my state, Arkansas, and our history with Sundown Towns. Now, I will preface all of these comments with the facts I've received from the Encyclopedia of Arkansas, which is at encyclopediaofarkansas.net. I'm doing most of this off memory. I studied so much civil rights, especially when it came right here to my very own state, which I've lived in now for 20-something years. And so it's important, I think, that I share my historical knowledge with you. I got so many positive comments on the past couple episodes. They didn't know why 630 was built where it was, why it was significant that the peaceful protest shut down that highway, why that highway shut down the black business district that was 9th Street. Very historical, important to today information that I think it's key for you to listen to, even though it's hard to hear sometimes. Of course, last episode we talked a little bit about the Little Rock 9, which was actually first the Little Rock 10. And many people did not know that as well either. Did you know that 8 of the Little Rock 9 are still alive to this very day? So I'm telling you, it doesn't go back that far. These people are still here with us. White people and black people from back in that time who went through those particular experiences. I know a lot of young folks, oh, that was so far back in the day. Not really. Not really. If there's still people alive that experienced that kind of segregation, it really weighs on you still to this day. And that's why I don't think we will go past this moment in history without some significant change happening. I feel it in the air. All right, so sundown towns here in Arkansas. What are sundown towns? Many of my friends, white and black, who are younger, never heard of them. I don't even know if they teach sundown towns in U.S. history anymore, but they were called that because many of them had signs on their city limits that said, "Don't let the sun go down on you." And of course, they were referencing black people. Not only towns here in Arkansas, counties as well. In fact, Franklin County had a sign that read just that in 1970. 1970. That's not that far ago. I was born in the 70s. Just to give you an example of how not far ago that was. I'm telling you, man, sundown towns were at their peak during this moment in history. And more than 100 towns in Arkansas were considered sundown towns. Which towns are they? Well, I'll go ahead and list a couple. Blytheville, you've heard of that, over there in Mississippi County. Paragould, down in Greene County. Springdale, up in northwest Arkansas. All sundown towns. As I mentioned earlier, counties were sundown counties as well. Boone County, Clay County, Polk County. All areas in which they sought to keep out black people. You can go online and read much more about this, as I told you, at Encyclopedia of Arkansas.net. Just do a search for sundown towns. Now, many people know of areas that are still very segregated today, according to the residents who live there. Harrison, for example, who had an awesome Black Lives Matter peaceful protest just several days ago, is on that list. And the reason why, because you may not believe this, but back in the 1890s, there were several hundred black families who lived there. They had their very own church, their own neighborhood, their own social life, everything. And then in 1905, a white mob gathered, went to the prison there in town, or just outside of town, I should say, got some of the black prisoners, whipped them, ordered them to leave. There was a huge riot going on where all the white people who wanted these black people to leave their community literally formed a line. Over 100 people, they say, with guns, and marched through the black neighborhood, basically telling them to leave. And you know what they did? They took their houses after they left. This literally happened in Harrison, Arkansas, back in the early 1900s. Google it. Find out more information about it. As I said, I'm just going off my memory of my research and my history. There's also a town called Mena. Similar type of expulsion of the black community there. These are all very important historical facts that happened. Excuse me. Oh, I'm laughing because it's hard to talk about. And I'm messing up my words, which I don't usually do. But when you read some of this stuff and learn some of this stuff, it'll blow your mind. Rogers, Bentonville, very progressive communities currently, weren't so much back in the day. Also, you heard of the town of Sheridan, right? Well, as late as 1954, white residents of Sheridan did the same thing to their black neighbors in response to the Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. That's the ruling that allowed the desegregation of Little Rock Central to happen. Well, in Sheridan, they were like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We will move all the black employees here in this town of the local sawmill, which many worked at, to Malvern. We'll move you guys to Malvern. And it'll be at no cost to you. We'll help you do it. However, if you don't move from Sheridan to Malvern, not only will you have your house burned down, but you'll also be in danger of losing your life too. So, unsurprisingly, black people, quote unquote, chose to leave. They weren't much left with a decision, were they? This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It happened all over the South. I just happen to know Arkansas's history because I live here. A self-proclaimed leader of the Ku Klux Klan used to live in the Harrison area and moved his headquarters to Eureka Springs because he called it an all-white town. That was in the mid-1900s. This stuff still exists today as far as the ramifications, repercussions. One thing that really struck me was even graveyards were segregated. Oh my God, y'all don't want to get me started. We know some churches are segregated. We know neighborhoods, but just me not being here from the South was really blown away by graveyards. What? It's just even when they dead, they still segregate. It's absolutely crazy. Mountain Home, Siloam Springs, more examples of sundown towns here in Arkansas. Also, in regards to the Elaine race riots, which you may have seen me talk about on social media this week as well. By the way, if you're not following me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff, please do so. Treday every day, all day. Treday. You can find out some great information there as well regarding Arkansas history in regards to race relations. But the Elaine race riots were the very worst in Arkansas. Official records only have the deaths around 10 to 20 black people killed. However, everybody who's lived through that or heard the stories from their great-grandparents or unofficially documented it to be around 200 to 300 black people killed. Read the story of Scipio A. Jones. A lot of people drive on his street in North Little Rock. S.A. Jones. You know that street, right? But do you know who he is? He was a lawyer who successfully appealed the cases of some black people who were down in the Elaine race riots. And his story is very unique, special, because he had to move every single night. He couldn't stay in the same place 2 nights in a row because of death threats and fears that he would end up a victim as well. Discrimination has been going on in the United States as far as this country was founded, right? I mean, the changes that we are asking for, and I say we, I'm not black, but I am a peaceful protester. I believe Black lives matter. All lives cannot matter, in fact, until Black Lives Matter, which I've spoke on it before. So I'm in this fight. I've clearly stated my side of it. I have children who are black, as I've spoke about, and we talk about this kind of stuff every day. And that's why it's important, I think, to learn your history if you don't already know it. So many folks asked me, what's a sundown town? Including one of my kids. I took them to one, as a matter of fact. And we had dinner down there. And I said, we couldn't have done this 30, 40 years ago. Of course, because you weren't born then. But you also couldn't be out after dark. That's what a sundown town was. And he was blown away by it. He had never heard of such a thing. And hopefully we continue to progress so everybody is treated fair and equally. I'm just looking at this story right now in regards to the LGBTQ community. They just had a court decision at the United States Supreme Court in 2020. We are still determining whether people should be treated fair and equally. Up until a couple days ago, some states, employees could be fired based on their sexual orientation, based on who they choose to love, based on who they have a relationship with. These kind of decisions are being made in the highest court of the land still in 2020. Really? Come on. Come on. Man. So, anyway, that's my spiel for this week. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Please give us a 5-star rating on your Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your audio from. And please don't forget to look all this stuff up. The Encyclopedia of Arkansas is a great resource. You can find them online at encyclopediaofarkansas.net. Did you know Whitehall was a community that was built literally for just whites originally? Hey, do your research. Know your history. Very important. I'll see you next week right here on the podcast called Through My Two Blue. Thank you.